Hello. Well, this just seems funny. There's never a really good time to talk about this topic of rape. And why am I? I guess that I really want to share with people honestly so they get and understand that things that happen to us in our lives only continue in the present moment if we keep pulling back those thought processes and make them mean something today. You know, like being the victim of something, or, something survivor, or I have been a rape victim, or I am a cancer survivor. And I guess I want to highlight the fact that you're just who you are now, and whatever's going on now, that's what you're experiencing. And if there's been anything that's been negative in your life, such as sexual abuse or rape or whatever in the past, you have a choice as to how you feel right now about that situation. So, like anything I talk about, these are the things that I've experienced. And for me to talk about this, I'm actually going to read from my book because, I kind of wrote it down because I think it's important. And the amazing thing for me, these situations that happened when I was 17, which was quite a few years ago now, as I've discussed before, not one cell in your body is more than 15 years old. So that happened more than 15 years ago. And yet if I was to take that pain and suffering into this present moment, I would continue that pain and suffering, which kind of seems a bit crazy. So does memory still have, do you still contain memory in your head from those times? Well, yes. But when you realize that you do have choice and you are separate to your mind, I think with my mind. I, subject, think, verb, mind, object. Not that it is, because it's nothing really. But the two are separate. So when the thought comes up, you have the choice to step back and think, do I really want to think about this? And the answer is no. So if I come across it in a movie or a TV or anything, I just change the channels, purely because I don't want to think about something like that. Past, gone. Anyway, I'm talking in this book, in my book, just about stuff. So I'm going to read to you. Here we go. Okay, then one fateful evening, a negative consequence of my flirtatious behaviour came my way. A friend and I managed to get into this nightclub in Tottenham Court Road, underaged at 17. Tottenham Court Road is in London, which is where I was born and bred. I'm going to cruise over the explicit details of this event and just highlight a major message that I received. We accepted a lift home from two guys we'd been dancing with all night. We'd all been drinking alcohol, and this of course separates the mind from the body somewhat. On the trip home, the guy in the back was getting off with my friend. I sat in the front seat with the driver. We arrived outside my friend's house in Holland Park. The driver in the front with me was not going to be outdone by his mate in the back, and I think he must have watched some film or television show that made him want to live out some fantasy. I was dragged around a corner to a park, Camden Hill Gardens to be exact, and told that if I made a noise he would make a mess of my face. That line is hard to forget. He offered up a large switchblade as proof. This lesson in sex taught me pain and fear, as I was forced to do things I hadn't even heard of yet. When I finally got back to the house, I just felt numb. I couldn't really understand how people could be so cruel. I must have deserved it. That's what my mother would have said. I thought as I sat in a bath at my friend's house for hours, hoping that the hot water would take away the pain from my body and the experience from my mind. I knew I couldn't tell my mother, as she would be absolutely furious with me and never let me out of the house again. Again, the feeling of being powerless, was back. So I added this negative message to the rest of the others that I had gathered. I really was worth nothing. My father said so, my mother let him, and here was life just confirming it all. So what now? Anger, so much anger and fear, feeling like I didn't have control of anything that was happening in my life. So what was the answer? Attack first. That's the best form of defense. So attack I did, on the outside and definitely on the inside. And I started bleeding once again from the bowel. Now my mindset here still ran with my programmed understanding. So any realization that my body was reacting to how I'm feeling just passed me by. And the messages kept on coming. I remember being out with a boyfriend at a party one night. Another girl flirted with him outrageously and it worked. You've got to love alcohol. He started dancing closely with her on the dance floor, and the next thing I had to witness was them kissing each other. Right there, in front of everybody. That added to my feelings of shame. My mind took me right into the place of upset. The good old thoughts came again. I'm not good enough for him. He wants something better. What the thought should have been was, he is not good enough for me and I should want something better. The night had more dire consequences, as the bottle of Spanish brandy, which we brought to the party, was still half full. I drank the whole lot. I remember being, as they called it, blind drunk. I have a vague recollection of sitting outside on the pavement being sick and people walking past asking me if I needed help. It would have been a pathetic sight. I was just conscious enough to be embarrassed about it all and refused their kindness, which in this case would have been my salvation. A face that seemed familiar from the party group came up and said he would give me a lift. So I accepted, as I felt I had no other choice. He propped me up in the back seat of his Mini, and I remember trying to push my face into the tiny gap that the Mini back seat windows have, still vomiting. Lovely. But we didn't end up at my house, but his. After another episode of being used and abused, I was then shoved into a cab. Miraculously, I got safely home and collapsed in a heap in the hallway of my mother's house, luckily coming to before she found me the following morning. Message to self: this was never going to happen to me again. Whatever has happened to this vehicle, my body, is all in the past. I have no connection to that past whatsoever, being here in the present, as the past does not exist anymore. So all the more reason to drop any stories I have collected along the way. The reason I wish to share my many experiences is to connect with others out there who have experienced the same or similar and are suffering as a result, and to know that there is a choice as to how you feel about yourself right now, here in the present moment. It's all about choice, to feel good or to feel bad. So, and then it goes on, and then there's another story after that. So, yeah, I wanted to, getting feelings about that, but that's okay. Calm, gone. And that's the whole point I wanted to talk about this is, I find that with a lot of the people I talk to with regards to Crohn's, colitis, IBD, whatever, when we go back into their lives, there has been that powerlessness, you know, when you feel like you can't do anything about the current situation that's existing. And, you know, it can usually be an abusive situation that's occurring. But understanding that you have a choice as to how you feel right now. When those thoughts come up, just look at them. They're just thoughts. It's not happening right now. If it is, walk away. But if there's just the thoughts about way ago, just leave them there. Thank them for sharing. Don't get angry or pissed off. Just accept that the thoughts come up. Thank you for sharing. Goodbye. Whew. Calm down now. Coming back to self. It's amazing what memory can do. And I know it's very strong. And it's probably really easy to say and not so easy to do. But with practice, it gets easier and easier and easier. Anyway, wanted to share that. And I did. So all the best. Take care.